It's definitely heating up over there.
Yeah.
In more ways than one.
Exactly. You lose the feed
Look
again.
at that guy with the giant hat. Giant hat. I like that. We're back live again. And then what I'll do is after all this, all the different pieces will be assembled into one video on subscribestar.com/crowdsource the truth and patreon.com/crowdsource.
Wondering if maybe we should walk down a little if you want to stay.
Well, let's see what happens. I mean, it's still, as long as we're in the shade, I think we're okay. You know that guy with what his name is with the bullhorn?
No.
What are you trying to convince me?
Conservative Republican Alliance of New York. We're coming out here, fucking for conservatives in New York, let the voices be heard. This is managed in the office. We're doing monthly events. We're doing whatever it takes to fight conservatism in New York City. And it's brought to you by the CRA, Conservative Republican Alliance, New York. Thank you very much again. God bless you guys. Thank you so much. God bless you guys, man.
CRA is your organization, CRA?
Yes.
How do people find that?
You can find it on Twitter. If you go to Conservative Republican, Colin, what's it on Twitter? Conservative Republican Alliance, what's your tag on Twitter? You go CRA New York State on Twitter. You can find us on Twitter. And you can find us on Facebook at Conservative Republican Alliance NY. You can find my two group. I got two group pages. And what's your name? Christopher Wright. Thanks. You can find me at Christopher Wright as well. I got a YouTube channel as well. Christopher Wright. Yeah, well, it's for the whole production. Thank you so much.
This guy's great.
We don't know every Trump rap, but don't put no music on it yet. Hold up. Let's hold that tight. I want to say some real stuff. Because, think about it for a second. We do not go to their rally and say, hey, Trump matter. I've been traveling. I'm from Baltimore, Maryland. I've traveled I went to a lot of different states, and every Trump rally has been peaceful. People, we talk together. Yeah, but this is supposed to be the racist party. Every Trump rally, I'm from Baltimore, Maryland. It's been peaceful. But every time you turn around, we got the baby saying, oh yeah, Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter. Okay, it matters. Now feel good about yourself. Feel good. If you don't like my president, that's my president. If you don't like him, vote him out. Other than that, shut the down. We had an election, and our side won. I tell you now, I'm gonna give you some real true story. My mother never raised me to be against nobody. Let me make that very clear. It is not within my nature, okay? But let me tell you what happened, right? As a father of four, I helped Obama before, and a lot of people don't understand this, before you can even be taken serious. The same Democratic Party, right, that they say is the right party, do you know what I had to do for Obama? I saw this man spoke, right? When he spoke, I was like, damn, it touched something in me. We had to get signature. So I packed my kids up. I stood at a mall, right? By myself some days, right? And we went to different states to try to get enough signature to get Obama in office. We did that for Obama because we believe in him. You know who sparked our campaign up? The same liberal white racists that trying to call our party racist. Because when Bill Clinton came out and said his campaign was a fantasy, that's where everything sparked up. That's when it sparked up. Our campaign, we was eating dry donuts. We went to steak. Because the white liberal, right, they so-called call it our party racist. They the one that sparked their racist. Obama went whoop, and our campaign was on the ground. So now, Obama is in office, right? I sat back, and I was happy. Tears came to my eye. I'm not against nobody, but I'm a father of four. I'm a straight black man. Okay. Now, I understand this, right? Fight for this person, fight for that person. I don't need hand out, right? But not once in Chicago, he was a community organizer. Not once that Obama even gave the word. Let me tell you now, Anything Obama said at one point, I would march. If Obama say hop on one leg, I would have did it. Not once did Obama address the killing. Not once. This point, and you know that argument, the racist Republican won't let him do this and that. Okay, the same damn racist Republican, right? When Trump came in power, man, I said his what, first, second year? The man told you straight out, is he such a racist? He said this, what do you have to lose? Now let me tell you something. When I don't like nobody, if I don't like you now, I won't say nothing to you. If Trump was such a racist, he ain't had to address us. He ain't had to say nothing to us. He ain't had to say, what do you have to lose? Right or wrong? Anybody know some racist people? Racist people don't even want to be around you. Oh, you know what Trump did? He put it out there. He said, what you got to lose? Roll with me. You already rolled with me when I had Trump Tower. You rolled with me. All the celebrity rolled with me. And we did. You know what happened? Black unemployment at an ultimate high. I mean, low. We know. Yeah, but you already know the statistics and stuff. What happened? Until this pandemic and stuff. But we fighting our way back up. But not once did Obama ever address our issue. But y'all trying to talk about Obama and such this great president. He's the miracle working all this nonsense. I challenge you as a straight father. What time did Obama step up and address some of these issues? All Obama had today was say to come to the black community. He didn't. So they want to talk about racism. Listen, guys, we're going to keep on doing what we're doing. You hear me? We're going to keep on supporting our president because now more than ever, they are mad as hell. They are mad because, you know, the same narrative, the same nonsense they were talking about, they can't do it no more. $500 million and more that this black so-called Lives Matter organization is getting. And in my Baltimore City, I got to run for city council, man, because not once do you see them come there and build anything up. Let me tell you some things about people. Some people know how to tear things down, but they don't know how to build. That's dumb. They don't know how to build nothing. They just know how to talk about Black Lives Matter. Okay, explain that to me. Ask them, explain that to me then. Tell them to explain it to you. Tell them they can't. They cannot. He has no idea what they say. That's why I'm telling y'all now, a real black man is for Trump. And we're not going to let Trump go down. We're going to fight because they're going to That's what we're going to do. Mr. President, you hear me, Mr. President? We will be on the ground. We will back you because you got backing from the real black community. We don't need no sports people. That's why they can't face me. I ask you, face me. Face me. You don't got the liberal media to edit nothing now. Face me. We're going to keep on working. We're going to throw Trump back in. Put that music on, Mr. Sweet. What you gonna tell him?
Chinese people love Trump because Democrats hate Chinese people.
Chinese people love Trump because Democrats hate Chinese people.
I don't get it. Every rally they come there to prove what? What are you proving? Vote the president out and shut up.
They want to say Trump's racist, Trump's racist, Trump's racist. All I know is because of the president, I've been to the White House twice in 2 years. Went to the Young Black Leadership Summit, and Charlie Kirk and all patriots out there, I got invited from the President Trump to the White House. Got to hear the man speak. Was a part of the largest gathering of black conservatives in American history. We had over 400 black conservatives at the White House. You should have saw those people's faces, seeing 400 black people walking down the street with MAGA hats on, talking about Trump 2020. They didn't know what to do with themselves. So this is a racist president. This is so racist. He brought lowest black unemployment in American history. How racist. He's so racist. He's the only first president to permanently give donations to HBCUs, black universities. How racist. This guy's racist. This guy's the prison reform for the black community. The First Step Act. You know, the First Step Act got rid of the Free Strikes Law and prison more blacks than in 8 years in Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton, Joe Biden introduced the law in the Congress. And many prison more blacks than any law ever passed in American history.
President Trump got rid of that. Not Obama. Not Obama. Not the first black president ever. All Biden did was push prison reform, which is what got blacks in prison. And then he talked about blacks like they were savages while he did it. So that's the same guy. You guys watch an interview about prison reform and passed the bill. He was disrespecting the black community. And this is the same guy that blacks are going to vote for to get elected. When he says you're not even black, you don't vote for him. That's racism, people. And I don't like using that word because the left uses it so much. Like Nazis and Hitler, blah, blah, blah. But they use it so much. But the real, that's real racism is on the left. I tell you all the time, the first time I dealt with racism in this country is when I said I was conservative. That's when I saw racism. And I'll tell you where I saw it from. White liberals. Low expectation racism. They're looking at me like, oh, what do you know? You're black conservative. You don't know anything. Let me teach you. Let me raise you. That's how they act towards you. And when they say I stood up my own 2 feet without any help from the welfare system, the government assistance, they may start discrediting me. Then they start saying, oh, Uncle Tom, you're glue, you're all this. Oh, you're a racist. They look at me like, I'm not being racist. You just told a black man's not being black enough. That's racist. You guys are so blind to the fact you don't see it. You guys call everybody else racist so much, you don't realize you're the one being racist. That is the Democrat Party. They are the true Democrat Party that walk around with white hats on in the KKK rallies. Are the same Democrat Party that walk around with black masks on, call themselves Antifa. I've been attacked by Antifa twice. Bunch of white people in masks attacked me. And if that was the KKK and it was a freaking Trump rally, it would have been front page news. And since I'm a black conservative in New York walking down the street, nobody talks about it but me. That's the truth. So they cut me out of my own video and said, oh, it's white supremacist group came after Antifa. Then I had to release my video showing me, saying, I'm not white supremacist. No. So don't believe the fake news. Don't believe the mainstream media. Don't believe the far left. All they're out here is to brainwash and manipulate the black community. You're doing a pretty good job. You're going 93% Democrat, but that's going to change the next election. I'm predicting about 35-40% of black vote going towards our president. That's going to lead to a landslide victory for Trump in 2020. And we need a red wave to hit the House and the Senate. We need to take back the House. We need to take back our country. That's one step at a time, baby. Vote red. Let's get it done.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Chris. Thank you. You never seen it because you're not.
I have a special announcement.
That guy's still here.
From the black community. If you are a white liberal out here today, I want you to know you are the worst enemy of the black man. We do not want your sympathy. We do not want your help. We are very capable of taking care of ourselves. We don't need you leading demonstrations in our neighborhoods, destroying property, destroying our stores, destroying places where we have to go to work and feed our families. You white liberals come from your good neighborhood into our black neighborhood and encourage us to pack ours up. Then you go back home and you sleep peacefully in your neighborhood. So as of today, we don't want any white liberals supporting Black Lives Matter. We as black people know our lives matter because we are black. All damn lives matter. God created every man and he sees no color. So today I tell you white liberals, you are our enemy. You wear a Black Lives Matter shirt, you hold Black Lives Matter signs, and then you encourage us to tear up our neighborhoods, and you sneak back in and buy that very neighborhood for quarters on the damn dollar. And then when I want to get a place here, I can't damn afford it because you have came and taken it over. We have had enough of this damn nonsense. It is petty and ignorant. We support Donald J. Trump for President of the United States of America. It's going to be equal justice for all from the man that sleep on the street.
I'm what? Yes, I did. I'm sorry I made all that noise.
Okay.
I've had it. And guess what? I've got to show you something. I have a direct calling card to the president.
You have what?
A direct calling card to the president.
Good for you.
I did last time. Are you aware of Lionel Nation?
I've been on Lionel many
Can you
times.
tell me what he did to you?
4 more years! 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 4 more years!
You know, I know.
Well, so this is Jason Goodman.
Jason, I gotta give you a hug. I'm sorry I acted a fool, but I'm woke and crazy.
No, you didn't act a fool.
I do have a master's degree, and I can't speak the King's English. But fuck it, I'll go back to South Central Los Angeles.
Is that where you're from?
Originally.
So were you there in 1992?
No, I was here.
But there were riots here also.
I was here. I moved here in 1980. My family is second generation native California. They migrated from the South and then I see 4 more years.
4 more years! 4 more years! 4 more
My mother's mother was from Arkansas. We don't know if she was all white or mixed. Only know she had 4 more years. Don't know anything about my sister. My father's family was from Houston, Texas. They migrated when he was 2. And don't know the reason whether their farm was stolen from them because they had farms. And you know they were giving bad seeds, poisoning everything. So there's nothing you cannot tell me about my family and Native California. I was in the 4th grade when you want me to tell you?
Something going on over there?
The policeman's just going in there.
Okay, we'll come back. We'll come back.
Let me tell you something. You want to see something?
Yeah, sure.
I'm just like you.
Let's see. This thing is overheated. Oh my gosh.
And I know how. I just
Gotta be careful.
I know that
We don't want anything to happen to you.
You gotta take it because I gotta return the t-shirt.
Right.
So if you need to do that, we can talk after.
We'll talk afterwards. Be very careful. People can see that.
No, they can't because it's going back where it was.
There you go.
I'm like you now.
Be safe, man. Let's see what's going on over here.
Thank you. You see those white kids?
I don't see black people. I don't see black people here. Where's your black people at? Where's your black people at? We're not here. We're not here. We're not here. We're not here. No racist. No racist. No racist. No racist. No expectation racist. No expectation racist. A low expectation racist. A liberal. 2 leftists. The Democrat Party. The Party of the Democrat Party. The Party of the Democrat Party. Party of... Yes, it is. The Party of...
So these are 2 white ladies. You're racist. I don't get it.
She's a
We are the winning side. Oh, boy.
Right side of history, baby. Right side of history. Let it be the right side of history.
We are the truth. We want
USA! 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 USA!
So what after we defund the police, what do you want to see from defunding the police?
Friends of fellow patriots, I got a real fun in the girls here. A real patriot, good friend of mine, a fellow content creator. That's an amazing friend of mine. He's a real patriot. I'm one fellow patriot. Doing well.
Working overtime on Sunday for all this agitation. Shouldn't we be maybe auditing the police? What's going to happen when they defund the police and you call 911 and no one comes?
I did not say that.
But do you understand that the police are resigning because they're demoralized and they're getting beaten and people aren't getting arrested and it's emboldening criminals and you are helping that? Do you understand that? Get the hell out of here! Sorry, Charles, I got a little editorial on it.
That's right.
Wow, what a crazy crowd.
I think they should start screaming out 8 more years, not 4 more years.
Exactly.
That'll really get some heads
Well,
up.
I think after Trump, we're going to have Don Jr.,
Right.
then we're going to have Ivanka,
Then
we're
Jared.
going to have Barron. Well, right, well, I don't know about Jared, but also, wait, who's this? We have a new crew rolling in. These guys just arrived. I think he knows the police. They were talking to the police. You ask them questions, Charles, like what's going to happen when you defund the police,
What did
and
she
then
say?
you call 911, and they're like, oh.
I'll be in Florida.
Any respect for this country at all, they want to render us completely brainwashed. So I wanted to thank everybody for coming out here today. I think that we need to get more people to vote for Republican, and it doesn't matter if you're a centrist, a libertarian, an independent, a Democrat, possibly a change Democrat. So if you have if you're red-pilled as a Democrat, it doesn't matter who you are. What we want in this city is law and order. It doesn't matter what we want law and order. Check out my YouTube channel, Dylan Roth. You'll be seeing more content. You'll be seeing this entire video being posted there. I want to thank all of my fellow patriots in the Conservative Republican Alliance. Some of you might also hear me from the Republican Club. You guys are all freedom fighters. Thank you.
Here's
look at this guy.
Here's a skateboard, hat. Looks could be Antifa.
With the backpack?
Yeah, with skateboard, hat, your hat, backpack,
NYPD, 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 NYPD. America first, baby, America first.
We will never defund our police. We will not defund police. Back home. We got to defund all the people.
Exactly. Defund de Blasio.
Defund Planned Parenthood. 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 Defund Planned Parenthood.
Why are your mayor asking Washington, D.C. for $7.5 billion to save the state and the city of New York? Why? Why is he doing that when he wasting money paying Black Lives Matter on the street? DC should give us nailed fucking time. That's right. Because you want to waste your money, spend it on illegal aliens, and doing all other kind of fucking nonsense. Black Lives Matter is a terrorist group. Black Lives Matter is a terrorist group. They're terrorizing the city.
Marxists.
NYPD! 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 NYPD!
They're Marxists, anarchists. They're following
Everybody can run out.
They're out for chaos, dude.
They're out for chaos and destruction.
Absolutely.
It's a hoax. They're trying to get to try to get a Democrat in the White House. Antifa, Black Lives Matter. It's a complete hoax, and people don't realize it.
Coronavirus is a planned hoax.
Absolutely. It's devised.
They did that. People that Black Lives Matter are ignorant to history and ideology. They don't even know what they're subscribed to. Essential Marxist ideology that wants to destroy our country from within, eradicate the human family, our values, our these corporate slogans, so Black Lives Matter protesters are not propaganda sheep walking through slogans to demoralize. They have no mind to be. We gotta fight for our country. To take our freedoms and values. We gotta uphold our country's principles and preserve our freedoms and values. That's how we do it. That's right. Well said. That's how we do it. America was not founded in 1619. She was founded in 1776. Liberty, dedicated to the proposition that all men are created.
Our president has our back. We have this back, and we're going to fight for America. And we're going to bring real change to this country. One step at a time, one vote at a time, one mega patriot at a time. Let's get it done. God bless everybody. Thank you so much, man. Let's bring some change to the city.
8 more years.
Make New York great again.
I know. Hey, brother, get my card right now.
Oh, I'd like to get a card as well, if you could.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Drain the swamp.
Thank you.
I'm doing a lot of anybody from the Upper East Side. I mean,
Drain the fucking swamp. Got to.
We should invite him on the show.
Yeah, of course.
Well, Charles, it's a small but dedicated crowd.
It is. It's quite something. This is watching the American experiment in action. Interesting, though, that so far the fake Black Lives Matter terrorist organizers haven't been seen yet. It's kind of surprising.
Yeah, it's been just a couple of stragglers.
Announcement. 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 I have an announcement. I have an That the Waterloo and Como is putting out. We will be 100,000 strong in August. Gibson for New York State Governor, and we will not comply, Rally.
Now here it is.
Yeah!
Here it is.
Woo!
That's a good event so far.
Yeah. They're just noticing the Antifa types.
It happens. When it's live, it gets a little shitty.
Absolutely, they're right there. Get ready.
There's no black people there. Two.
Thank you.
Excuse me, ma'am. How do you feel about a bunch of white people telling you
This
that?
is where I always start the conservative Republican Alliance in New York.
Excuse me.
CRA. Because in America,
How do you feel about a bunch of white people telling you that?
I need to get more patriots in the city, who conservatives, together. Because when I did my first video, I went viral on Walkaway. Shout out to Brandon Strike and the Walkaway movement. When I did my first video for Walkaway, it went viral. Once it went viral, I had people from New York, all over the city, reaching out to me saying, Chris, I thought I was the only conservative in New York. I said, there's others out here like you. And I'm going to create a group for us. That group was called the Conservative Republican Alliance, the CRA. And every month we've been watching the fence and bringing out all the patriots in New York, the conservatives, to come out and they can fight for our president, fight for our political ideology. As Americans, freedom. That's why CRA is here. That's why we're here. We're here to bring our alliance, the conservatives. Let's bring the conservatives together. Let's send citizens and new better culture. I said it once and I say it again. Once it's group through, from 2 people to almost 1,000 people in the city are in the group now. We do that quickly. And in the future, even if Carly becomes our president and after Trump leaves office, this group is going to continue to grow. Post-conservatism. No more minor establishment Republicans. We're done with minor establishment. More needs. More needs.
Are you concerned about what's been happening in New York since all this protesting and rioting started? There's violence everywhere, less police around. I'm with you. I don't either. Exactly. It's very dangerous. Wasn't that provocative? The whole thing was showing out in front of Trump tonight. He's asking for a fight, isn't he?
The Bible is giving the green light. The police will shut down. You don't have any police. What's going to happen?
NYPD!
that something's about to happen.
What will happen is they're going to throw something.
This crew over here?
Yep. Or they're communicating with their, on the phones and texting and whatever. They're going to try to get some more people here.
Don't be twisted. And you know juicy's maniac. This is mega country. Juicy's maniac to the best, baby.
For example.
These my boys.
Like what's in that bag?
NYPD, 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 NYPD.
You don't care. You're going to attack me with the cops right here? You're going to whip the cops' ass? You want to tell them that? Why'd you come out to a protest? The cops are going to whip my ass? This guy's informing me that he's going to whip my ass and you're going to whip my ass. He's in public.
Don't put the camera on. My NYPD will whoop your ass.
You're NYPD.
Mine. They're my NYPD.
I'm just standing here,
Your
man.
fucking ass. Don't film me.
Does this look like it's filming you? You're agitated. And I'm an asshole?
Film over there.
I can stand wherever I want. You're the only asshole I see. What you got in the bag, genius? Huh? I think you're about to start some shit. Just keep an eye on this guy if you could. He seems like a cop. Is this lady with you?
They'll know I'll start some shit. They'll know I'll punch you in your fucking face. They'll know I'll punch you in your fucking face.
I don't doubt you will.
They know. Fuck you mean?
My ally proved me wrong. I don't have an ally because I stand
I'm ready. You want to do it?
Jason.
I'm sorry. I understand that Black Lives Matter. I understand that. That's not no issue. So what's the problem?
Are you with him? Yeah, you better get him out of here. Come here and talk to me. Why is he threatening my life, lady? Take that mask off.
I'm not taking a mask.
Get these violent agitators out of here.
My father's 91.
I don't give a shit.
I do.
Get that guy out of here. He's threatening to kill me. Yeah, he is. He said he's going to punch me in the face.
I know. And that's not the right.
What's your name? What is your name? What is your name? Tell me your name. My name is Jason Goodman. What are you doing bringing violent agitators here?
I don't bring anybody.
You said you're with him. Get the hell out of here, lady. Get out of here. Yeah, you're with him. My mother's watching right now. She's not embarrassed. She thinks you're a maniac. You're a Marxist. You're an agitator. Get out of my face. Oh, is that right? You're the idiot telling black people that Black Lives Matter while you're standing on the side of people destroying the city, telling me I'm uneducated? Get out of here, lady. Get out of my face. Back up. Back up. Tell us your name, you coward. Go hang out with the agitators.
No, look, this is that good.
Explain yourself. They're hypocrites. Talk to a black man, right? They hypocrites. What y'all talking about Black Lives Matter?
Yeah, well, somebody might get this stuck up their ass.
Hold on. This is America. Because, man, I see.
That guy's got something in that bag.
That says Black Lives Matter, right? Because I'm a black man. I want you to break that down for me if you don't know. This is your platform. Yeah, go ahead.
Now the gimbal is overheating.
Really?
That's kind of funny. That's kind of funny. Exactly.
The cops are just here to kind of stand around.
Well,
Let's chill. No, let's chill. Hey, hold on.
Husky lives matter.
You want to get in the shade?
No, I think we're okay here. Yeah, those guys are definitely here ready to start a fight. That's all they want. They don't want justice. They don't want peace. They just want to blow off steam. They want to fight people. They want to come over here in public and say, don't film me, and start a whole problem.
Now this guy is good, and if he's interacting with the Black Lives Matter person, it's pretty funny.
Because let a real black man, I want to see how they're saying my life matters, right? Because guess what? I am a black man. I should know this because my family actually are from Africa. If you look at Eugene Boycott, that's an African name. So it's not a Johnson or a Smith. So I want to understand this logic, how you care for me more than I should care for myself and my situation. So y'all please chill for a second. I'm representing the party that's always been on the right side of history. You hear me? So I want to hear from this lady how her voice should matter, or any black person over here, to challenge Eugene Boycott, B-O-I-K-A-I, that I don't know what I'm talking about, brainwash. So y'all got the platform right now. Anybody?
Anybody?
Nobody's got anything to say. Nobody.
That's right. Relax. We in New York City, baby. We in New York City. A dude with a name Eugene Boycott, not Smith, not Johnson, right? Whole family from Africa, from there. This great country right here. So I want to see who here is going to represent me better than me. So I'm asking y'all scream all the rhetoric. This is your opportunity. Who? Come on, guys. Anybody?
Notice how they're silent.
Anybody?
What about the coward?
Don't do it. I know. This is what I'm trying to tell you, right? Forever, guys, you gotta remember this. Forever, these liberal, they use black folks to push their agenda.
Yes!
All right? So this is what I'm saying right now. Finally, we had enough, and we understand the bamboozle that they're doing. They the one that fought for slavery. Remember this. They fought for slavery. They are the one, this party, it's the same one that put in Jim Crow laws.
That's right,
When the liberal media can control or edit the narrative, a real black man is in front of you that goes through the ups and the downs. I want to find out how you're going to represent me better than me. So I declare war, and I'm challenging anybody on your black list than me. Anybody step up now? Let's go. Okay, that's what I'm saying, right? If you, Eugene Boycott, I am in the hood, Eugene Boycott, Baltimore City, Council District 12, representing, I am, look, Eugene, I put it right here, Eugene Boycott, I'm representing one of the toughest districts in Baltimore.
Give him the mic, brother. Give him the mic.
What you say?
Give him the mic. Give him the mic.
No, that's what I'm telling you. You don't understand what I'm fighting against, bro. You don't understand. And I represent it to the fullest. So you trying to say, but no, let me grab this on mic because I want to battle him. I don't care what you are, bro. There's two levels to this. There's some that's bamboozle. There's two levels to this. No, you want to step up, you want to battle me. Somebody give this man a mic. Give him a mic. Find a mic. Give him a mic. No, you want to talk. Take it to the hood. I am in the hood. I'm representing. That's what I'm saying. You got something to say? Say. Give this man a mic. I want to battle you. Battle you. You say take it to the hood. I'm going to show you what I'm representing. Eugene Boycott. That's I'm not about to battle.
Why not?
Your intensity can never match my level. That's why I'm talking liberal.
Saying go to Washington Square Park.
Who's saying you back? That's where all their other people are waiting to kill everybody.
Because you can't. No, I can't. Because you can't speak for me, bro.
I speak for myself. You can't speak for me.
But you say take it to the head. I'm from Baltimore.
Take it to the hood. I got family in Baltimore.
Okay, then. What's your business? So you want me to cover every ground
Take your
here?
ass to the fucking hood and talk that shit. And
I talk that shit whenever I stand. I'm talking whenever I stand.
let me take you to the hood.
Okay, then you come to Baltimore, right? You come to Baltimore. Okay, then. Tell me to Baltimore. Come down here and talk to my district. No, but you say, you trying to make it seem like somebody cowards out here. It's real brothers stepping up now. I'm going to take it to the hood. I'm going to take it to the suburbs. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to take it everywhere. Take it downtown. I'm going to take it anywhere. I'm not from here. So what that's going to do?
Let's go. Bring it.
So that was, okay.
Go out there and scream the same shit.
No, we're right here.
What's that going to do?
Right here.
Scream the same shit.
What's that? I'm screaming this shit. I'm screaming it now. Make your point. Make your point. To the hood, like that's corny as hell. They don't stand for nothing. They don't stand for nothing. Talking about take that to the hood. I'm from Baltimore City. What you talking about? Say take it to the hood. And what the hood's gonna represent blackness more? Hood represent blackness more? That's what you say? The hood represent blackness more? Huh? It represents blackness more. Then what you mean take it to the hood? Well, I'm aggressive because I believe in what I stand for. If you're black, you gotta be hood. If you're black, you gotta be hood. Okay. If you're black, you gotta be hood. Okay. If you're black, you gotta be hood. If you're black, you gotta be hood. That's if you're black, you gotta be hood. If you're black, you gotta be hood. If you're black, you gotta be hood.
I don't know if that's getting too intellectual.
Yeah, should we walk downtown or?
Yeah, whatever you want to do, Charles.
Shot fire! Shot fire! You ain't hot fire right now, dog. I'm feeling pregnant. That's what I'm telling you.
I mean, it certainly seems like they're trying to lure them down to Washington Square Park, right?
Absolutely.
No, how about to the hood? You understand? It
seems the mask-covered cowards of Antifa only like to debate when their opponents are grossly outnumbered and intimidated by large people.
Right, they're not debating. They weren't able. They were given a chance to say something, and they said nothing.
Yeah, because they got nothing to say. They just want to do violence.
I'm not a violent person at all. I'm not. Don't need to be violent. I'm not violent. This is not violence. You're violence, not us. They're anti-violent. No, but he said take it to the hood. Yeah, yours. He said take it to the hood. Respect Trump. What you doing? Respect Trump. What you at that? You so challenge me. What you do your job, dog. Record me. Stop recording me. Yeah. I can tell you, free country, I can say what I want to say. It's a free country, I can say what I want to say, dog. Get over it. Ask him what's his point. Straight up. He said, take it to the hood. Straight up. District 12. Hey, walk it off, dog. Walk it off. You walk it off this, right? Walk it off. I'm from Baltimore. Let me put this out right now, because he said, can't cheat their head. Like all of us just representing the hood type thing. But anyway, my name is Eugene Boycott. I'm from Baltimore City. We are record breakers, making actually true black manhood. We are challenging the power that be because they ain't doing nothing in our district. This president said that place was filled with rat. He was not lying at all. Sharpton, all these so-called black men, the real talk, they not out there in the hood trying to save young black men. They ain't doing that. They going down to the urban community and spray painting Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter. But you're not helping us.
So this is a barricade that they've created. They're using tactics, obviously. They put the bikes sideways. 3 bikes like that, another bike over here, and this becomes a wall. So if it comes this way, they can deflect. You know, these are urban guerrilla warfare tactics. As much imagery as many of these videos as These are agitators and cowards who show up with their faces covered. So where'd you learn that tactic of blowing the crowd with your bike? Where'd you learn that tactic, buddy, blocking the crowd? Where'd you learn that tactic of blocking the crowd with your bike? I've seen you do it, right? Why didn't you guys answer him when he was asking all those questions? This is a place to speak, right? I don't need to put a mask on. Now you got something to say? Why don't you take yours off so we can see your face? No, because you're a coward. No, you don't respect shit. You guys are Marxist agitators. You want anarchy. And you want to destroy the city.
You are absolutely right.
He's got the rebel helmet.
You need to burn the...
Who taught you guys this tactic of blocking the crowd with the bikes? Was that Antifa training? No, it's not. It's common sense to get the hell out of here. I have common sense. I can see that you guys are part of Antifa. You're part of a crowd that wants to destroy the city. You want to defund the cops. You want rioting chaos. Ha ha ha. Why don't you get some more tattoos? You look like a billboard. Actually, it looks terrible. You guys look like a bunch of tattooed rejects. Tacky. I appreciate art. This is art. It looks like a... By the way, these are the perfect ways to identify you guys, even without the masks. This guy looks angry. No tattoos. Was that an injury from the cops? You want to defund the police? You want anarchy and chaos in the streets? You want to steal things and loot stores? Why don't you guys leave America and go somewhere where it's already a socialist republic?
You mean Bill Clinton?
Keep supporting the rapist.
You mean Bill Clinton?
Bill Clinton was the rapist.
Yeah, but our president right now is Donald Trump, right?
And what credible accusations of rape against Donald Trump have stood up in court?
Plenty.
Well, name one. Name one rape victim of Donald Trump.
How about Juanita Broderick?
Juanita Broderick? You know who that is? You know who that is? You don't know who that is. That's a woman who Bill Clinton. Did I touch a nerve when I said that? Did I touch a nerve? Did you touch a nerve? No. You realize that it instructed me that you're a moron who knows nothing. You say Donald Trump raped somebody. Who did Donald Trump rape? Name one name.
You said any bad words to you, so
Say again. You said what? Moron says what?
The one with the skateboard is now behind.
What is she doing back here?
I don't know.
Are you voting for Trump 2020? Are you voting for Trump 2020? I don't think so. What are you doing with the skateboard? Let's talk over here. Come here. Let's talk over here for a second. Why don't we talk back over here? I think you're going to agitate. What? Don't touch me. Don't raise a fist. Is she with you? You guys aren't agitating? I think she's I thought you were looking at the Antifa guys. All right, get the hell out of your face. I thought you were getting ready to knock these guys on the head. I'm not bothering her. I thought dressed in black, standing behind him. Antifa don't flag. Just let me know. I saw her alone. Didn't know she was with me. These people know nothing. They just want chaos and violence. All right, I've had enough of them, Charles.
All right, you want to walk downtown or?
Let's head this way, huh?
Okay.
I hope each and every one of them get their skulls cracked by the NYPD. I would increase the funding to the NYPD, specifically so that they could beat down morons like that.
For more, you would increase the skull cracking budget?
Yeah. I think we should dedicate $1 billion just to skull cracking.
Yeah, it was pathetic. Actually, I didn't think the the Black Lives Matter people were as vocal or as effective as they might have been. It was really, frankly, pathetic.
Well, they're entirely pathetic. They just normally outnumber. Like when I'm there alone and there's 12 of them and they surround me with their bikes like that, I think that they should just identify that that's a tactic and say no bicycles are allowed. And if you show up with a bicycle, you got to go away.
Looks like the cops turned around and going against traffic to some other thing with the sirens. Let's just walk a little slower if that's okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty funny. I really think they should have been yelling 8 more years.
Yeah, I mean, it's just pathetic, those people. He says Donald Trump is a rapist.
Il Tonello out. That's a good restaurant.
But then they don't know anything. I asked the guy, who did he rape? What's one credible accusation of rape?
They just know. They just say something inflammatory and then the crowd will go wild.
Oh,
Look at this. All these tables. Nobody's 6 feet apart.
Well, nobody's going to want to eat outside when there's a riot about to happen over there.
Can I have some rat carpaccio, please, with my...
Yeah, exactly. Rat attacks on the rise. So, Charles, you see how that hooligan thug loser is emboldened to threaten me with physical violence right in front of the cops, and they don't even say anything?
And then he just left. It was really weird. And what was that white woman?
Are you with him? And she said...
Was that her?
So then if you're with him, you're getting yelled at.
No, but was that his it
was unclear.
Adoptive mother or something? I mean, she was easily twice his age. She had white,
I think she was very confused. But first she said she was with him. And so if you're with him, you're getting my wrath. Get him the hell out of here. And then she says, oh, your mother's going to be embarrassed. Actually, I think my mother probably wants me to beat the shit out of both of you. Just guessing.
Yeah, that was funny. Well, look at the state of this street, which is,
the state of the city, Charles. It's just incredibly distressing.
But I mean, this was prime real estate. Look at it; it's like derelict.
It is derelict. Oh, there's a new cafe coming soon. I doubt that.
But this used to be, seriously, used to be decent restaurants. Again, half a block from Trump Tower.
I think they all realized when I was showcasing their tattoos. None of them want to take down their mask.
But the
but
tattoos.
It's like, we'll just identify you from these tattoos. They were like, oh.
and the angry tattooed short-haired white girl, she really just crumbled. She was all full of anger.
Right.
And they said, all right, what are you for?
Right, stand up and talk to the guy. These guys weren't going to fight. Charles, I got to tell you something. I have tremendous respect for the members of the black community who will stand up against this because they're going to get the most anger and hate, and people call them... That black woman was calling the black guy the kind of stuff that if you and I said it, we'd be deplatformed and never heard from again.
Exactly. Well, so there are a few things we might talk about in the stride home that have happened in the last week. One was the Trump interview on Hannity, which I think you had a chance to listen to. He was just calling in. I think it was Thursday night. Yeah. And that was quite an interview. Forget the politics part of it about sizing up the election. The comments that Trump made about Obama and Biden and the degree to which they were responsible with Brennan, Comey, Clapper, and others for treason. He specifically called them out for treason and more or less said, look, everybody knows what happened. We have 100% of the evidence we need. When he was asked, by Hannity, are you impatient at the length of time this is taking? So Trump didn't, back away and say this is a matter that...
It's 95, Charles.
God, I should have worn my overcoat.
Yeah. Trump did not back away.
He didn't back away. He just flat out said, look, everybody knows this is the worst crime in America's history. It's a coup, and something has to be done about it. That was quite impressive stuff. He followed that up on Friday with a tweet where he said that not that he was going to think about it, not that he was going to sign an executive order, but instead that he had directed the Treasury Department to review the tax-exempt status of private...
Stay there for 1 second, Charles.
Sure. Of private schools and universities to determine whether or not they were... careful. Whether or not they were That's
They got
odd.
eyes on us, Charles.
Whether these universities should lose their tax-exempt status, because technically education...
That was great, wasn't it?
That was fantastic. That's something I've been suggesting they do for years, frankly, but it's simple because you don't need to do a new law, you don't need to change the regulations, you just need to enforce the regulations that are on the books. And as we've discussed in numerous prior podcasts, an educational institution is supposed to educate, not indoctrinate. It's not supposed to grade people who are progressive higher than people who are conservative or anything else like that. If you're spewing propaganda, you're a political organization and you do not deserve tax exemption.
Texting now.
Yeah. Beyond that, you have the issue of these major universities all get massive, in addition to being tax exempt, they get hundreds of millions, together billions of dollars a year of government grants. U.S. government grants, foreign government grants, also state and local grants.
Why not just defund the universities or charge them tax and use that money for all this stuff they want to take from the police? That makes more sense.
Well, and maybe to go back to the old days of universities, they got tax exemption in the old days, many of these universities, because they were teaching ministers or teaching people to have jobs where you weren't going to make that much money. And for that basis, it was felt that educational institutions should be tax exempt. But when you create business schools and law schools and accounting schools and medical schools and things like that, those schools they have a mammoth number of applicants. They have no difficulty getting people to pay high fees. They have grateful grads who give them a lot of money. And they're on careers where they make tons of money, and more importantly, where the professors and the bureaucrats can also charge consulting fees and get involved in investing. So I really think we should be bringing the charity law back up into the 21st century, and schools like the ones I attended, Harvard and Yale, that have no trouble, they're gigantic endowments, no trouble getting more students, no trouble paying their bills, those schools shouldn't get any government grants. And frankly, their professional ones should be, professional schools should not be tax exempt at all. They should be taxable.
Right.
Those are businesses. We can go down.
Yeah, I
this
mean,
way.
NYU being tax exempt is I don't think I realized that before I met you. That is like offensive.
Yeah.
I don't understand. And that woman tells me I wouldn't know what a Marxist was. How can you make a statement like that? You don't know anything about me.
Yeah. Well, so that was one very significant thing. Another significant thing is that this Emmett Sullivan, who...
Oh God, I knew he wouldn't give up. On bank review.
Right,
and he didn't raise anything new.
Right.
He's just saying, do it again. Which, like when I look up motions that I want to do and watch bar exam videos and stuff, they say don't use this motion because you're basically just asking the judge to re-evaluate what they already said, and they're going to get irritated.
Right.
But he doesn't seem to mind that.
Well, I think what they're trying to do is they want Trump to pardon Flynn, because then they want to be able to revisit the whole Russia hoax thing. And so that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to play this out as long as possible. But this has been a gross miscarriage of justice. It's gross injustice. And that a judge, and a high judge, high level...
Probably is high.
Yeah, a high level judge would perpetrate this fraud on the American people, on the world at large, when we have real issues to deal with. I mean, the Clintons, if you go back to it, it was the Bushes and the Clintons that sold America out to the Chinese and the Indians. That's what happened. We go back to 88 to 2000. In that period, America made some very bad decisions, first under H.W. Bush and then under Bill Clinton. Those bad decisions are now bearing fruit. Bore fruit last year, but bearing fruit this year. And in a situation where the Chinese literally believe that they're going to dominate the world, and so they're now not going to respect past treaties with Hong Kong. They're going to go try to take Taiwan. They're behaving like thugs, frankly. And the reason they have this power is they've been buying influence via the Clinton Foundation, via the Bush Foundation, via other presidential foundations, using George Soros and other globalist investors. They've been getting away with this for a long time. And instead of spending time across the spectrum trying to fight back the Chinese the way we should, we've been allowing Marxist interests to foment the divisions that have been fomented. And there's a lot of talk. Friday night, Donald Trump commuted the sentence of Roger Stone. And instantly, Hollywood had exploded. Hollywood, what passes for heads, because it's unclear that their brains inside of them.
Their heads, but right, it's empty.
Right.
There's a differential of pressure that caused the nothing inside to exceed the pressure of what was outside.
Right. So all these heads are exploding and saying this is the worst thing that ever happened. No president's ever done anything like that.
That is pure ignorance. They don't say anything about the FALN members and Susan Rosenberg.
Well, let's take it apart step by step. So the first issue is that a commutation is different than a pardon.
Right.
A commutation, the felony conviction that Stone received stands in his record. He's a felon. He just doesn't have to go to prison.
Look at that, Charles.
What?
Well, this is the new normal for hot dog stands in New York City. You now have a secondary guy and
That's
a
right.
table and a
Where's
like
the
a surround.
Where's the sommelier?
But in all truthfulness, the only reason it can support this is that the sidewalks are empty. You would not be able to do that.
Right. But if I could just finish on the commutation and the pardon. So Stone would have liked to get a pardon, I imagine,
because then he could vote and own guns and stuff.
But he is courageously proceeding with his appeal. He wanted, I mean, when you go into the facts of the case, the lead juror on his trial was violently anti-Trump, well-known anti-Trump, that she targeted Stone. And it was an abusive process. The judge was an abusive Obama-era judge, appointed judge.
Amy Berman Jackson.
And he should have gotten a new trial. Instead of doing that, knowing that he had these health conditions, knowing that COVID was prevalent, in theory, in these jails, they wanted to stick him into jail and kill him.
Well, they're weaponizing that because Steve Stockman is still in jail, while just yesterday I think they were talking about releasing another 8,000 people, some of them violent. There was a police press conference last week where I think McDermott, or who's the chief? There's Shea and there's McDermott, but they were talking about how all of these guys who got released, 98% of them, the NYPD said don't release them.
Yeah. Well, so going back into the pardon and the commutation, let's just focus on my dear friend Bill Clinton. You know, there's a lot of focus on the Mark Rich and Pincus Green pardons. Now, those were outrageous. And at the time, I really hadn't focused on this witch, Susan Rosenberg, who also, her sentence wasn't commuted. She was sentenced to, I think, 58 years in federal prison. You don't get sentenced to 58 years for a minor crime. She is a proud member of the Weather Underground, a proud today terrorist. And Bill Clinton, on the same night that he pardoned his brother and pardoned Susan McDougal and pardoned Rich and Green, pardons this bitch.
Well, take it from me, Charles. Old lady Jewish terrorists. You don't want to mess with them.
Well, fine. And so this Susan Rosenberg is today centrally involved, raising money in theory via 1,000 Currents, which is supposedly a tax-exempt organization. That 1,000 Currents certainly has not disclosed all the defects in Susan Rosenberg's background.
They obviously know them, though, because they took her down when you started talking about it.
Right, but Tucker Carlson did a show where he talked about this at length, I think, Tuesday night, and it's already taken off YouTube.
Look at this.
Yeah. And so Joe Hoft, who's very good at Gateway Pundit, he's done a work on that as well. I don't know what this is all about. It seems like a
slow procession, right?
Yeah. Is it a funeral?
Why would they do that?
Well, the cars with the lights.
Is it police funeral maybe? Wow. I don't see a hearse.
So back on the distinction between Stone and Clinton. So, you know, there wasn't, the person who was in charge of reviewing all the parole applications and pardon applications when Bill was president at the end was Eric Holder.
Oh, wow. Why? Because he was Deputy Attorney General?
I don't know. I don't think it fell to the Deputy Attorney General. There's a specific person who has that role or had that role. And we know Eric Holder has deeply suspicious roots with, he was on the team that occupied Columbia University when he went there. He has got deep-seated, I would argue, terrorist connections. And that man was the Attorney General. So to talk about Trump's actions with regard to Stone as being beyond the pale is just to display the kind of monumental ignorance that you can watch 24/7 on MSNBC or MSN, Hanny calls it MSNDNC, CNN, the major networks.
Well, you can see it right there in front of Trump Tower, Charles. You know, these guys spew out talking points that they're convinced of, but they're not based in fact. There has been no...
Facts don't matter, Jason.
Right. I mean, has there ever been a rape trial that Donald Trump settled for money?
No.
Right. But Bill Clinton, there has. And there's numerous women with credible allegations of rape, including Juanita Broderick, who we've spoken to. Who is the other woman who I'm thinking of that the big lawsuit was with?
Oh, it was Kathleen Willey, Paula Jones.
Paula Jones is who I was thinking
And,
of, right. But there's a long list of women who have described in great detail how they were forcibly raped.
Are these the Antifa thugs?
They don't have masks on, so I would say no.
Probably just tourists.
There
Tourists or
are
terrorists?
some people who are right.
Very quiet.
People trying to get back to their regular lives with biking and whatnot, but I think I recognize those Antifa jackasses that we were
sparring
debating
with.
there. Yeah.
So in terms of the other developments, you have, we'll see how long this Emmett Sullivan thing goes. We have on Tuesday, John Solomon has his book coming out, which will get in, I think, not only to the Russia hoax, but likely to Ukraine, to China, to Biden, and that'll be a bombshell coming out Tuesday.
I was watching Rudy Giuliani's podcast, and his latest episode, he's talking about $5.3 billion given to Ukraine that's unaccounted for. So there's potentially much more than the whatever $1,000 per month that Hunter Biden was getting. I mean, that seems almost like a tip.
Well, again, with the Clintons, with the Obamas, they get you to focus on something that isn't the core of the issue.
Right.
The core of the issue was the financial restructuring that occurred while Bush was still president, and then as Barack Obama went into power, with the Federal Reserve breaking every conceivable rule and norm about interfering in the markets. And there's never really been an exhaustive review of what happened to that money.
Right.
For those in the audience who know a little bit about the financial markets, if you are an investor and you hear through a friend, a little birdie tells you that interest rates are going to go down, U.S. government interest rates are going to go down, when the market expects them to go up, you can make a tremendous amount of money trading in ways that'll be very tough for people to figure out. You can, you figure out the companies that'll benefit, the commodities that'll benefit, the securities that'll benefit, bond securities that is, and you buy them long. Conversely, things that won't do so well, you short them. Or you enter into derivative contracts. All sorts of ways you can do this. And I think at the center of the Obama administration, particularly in the 2009 to 11 timeframe, when they were trying to bring the markets back and save General Motors, there was a tremendous amount of theft. And of course, nobody in the administration wanted to look into it because the people doing the thieving were the big donors to both parties.
This place is still boarded up, Charles.
It should be.
That's the watch place. Oh, they had $2 million worth of stuff stolen.
Really?
I heard. I think so. I think it was torn out.
Yeah, this is the Whole Foods where they have videos regularly of homeless people going in and just going, and when it was open,
oh man,
going to the food court and just...
Well, it's Delivery Central now. That used to be, the escalator jammed, but now it's just, I think, hiring more delivery people.
That they do. And here we are at Bryant Park.
Oh, wow. Whoa. It's closed to the general public. Online only. That's interesting, Charles. So that's why it's all... Wait. That guy looks like he's wearing a motion capture suit.
Huh.
That's just a camera on his head in a
GoPro?
black and white outfit. For a sec, get the sphere and the LiDAR machine and let's start the shot. Well, but wait a minute, Charles. Back on to the Roger Stone thing for a second. Because I fully agree with whatever people think about Roger Stone. Love him, hate him, he's a polarizing character. Doesn't matter if you hate him. FBI should not bust into the guy's house in the way that they did put him through everything he's been put through, and then throw him in jail. The original crime, I mean, he was a little bit wild in terms of the things that he posted and provoking the judge and these alleged process crimes. I mean, that wasn't smart, but he shouldn't have ever been in that position in the first place.
Right, and Whiskey Mueller, crooked special counsel, of course, has an op-ed in the Washington Post.
Oh, can he write even? It's outside of his purview.
Somebody probably wrote it for him, defending the fact that he had targeted Stone, and defending the decision in the case, and decrying Trump's action.
The weed company is there, Charles.
Yeah, right next to the Bank of China. That's how they come up with their
exactly.
financial ideas. But the issue that people don't seem to understand very well, because the mainstream media has gone out of its way to confuse you, is that in this country, the government doesn't have a right to just investigate Jason Goodman for the hell of it. It's not the way it works.
If they leave that to people I'll be meeting in Virginia later this week.
Well, you can have, I mean, the media can do that, but if you want to use government resources to investigate an individual, you have to investigate it in relation to a crime.
Gotta have due process.
Well, you gotta actually, there has to be a crime. And at the time the investigation was opened into the Trump campaign, the only crime that I can see in all that was opening the investigation, right? There was no right to, for the Obama administration's avidly supporting Hillary Clinton to turn around and go to foreign powers and use domestic law enforcement, the FBI and the deep state, to go after not just Donald Trump, but anybody working on his campaign or connected to his campaign and contributors. That was an outrage.
The reason why Emmett Sullivan is using every single judicial power that he has and will continue to do that.
Whoa, moron.
That guy's an ass. It's happening all the time now, Charles. People are coming back on the streets, and it's just more of that.
Right.
He's going to use every single trick in the book, because if this is properly teased out, as you would say, and all the details are learned, it's going to reveal vast corruption. I mean, I've been listening to this book on tape, on Audible, Douglas Valentine's CIA as Organized Crime. I recommend it to everybody. It is totally shocking, the types of things and the lengths that they go to cover this stuff up. And I just think that for whatever reason, Emmett Sullivan is not going to allow this to go away. I like the idea that you've introduced, that they want Trump to pardon him, but they have to convict him in order to do that. And if the DOJ, so now that's why he brought up the perjury.
Right. So, but I think actually what's really going, John Solomon was on Lou Dobbs, I guess he's on every Tuesday and Thursday, and he was on talking about how he has, on Lou Dobbs, how he has it on direct knowledge that there are Durham is active, not simply with indictments and the grand jury, but also with negotiating plea agreements. Let's keep the speed a little slower.
Yeah. Let me ask you, while we're talking about Barr, we just found that little item that I tweeted out. People can follow me on Twitter at CSTheTruth. That apparently, quite quietly, the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of New York was just fired, and I found that very relevant. I found that very relevant while he was replaced.
Here's that sign. Remember we saw that before?
Yes.
Minnesota, the paragraph, the three lines, the dot at the top, and that I think is Antifa.
Well,
we've seen that around.
Yeah, we have, and we've seen some of these people around, and we've seen some of these tactics around.
Right.
And so this Eastern District of New York U.S. Attorney was removed, and there's a new guy they just put in there, acting U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District. The reason why I think that's important is because that's exactly what happened in the Southern District they removed Jeffrey Berman right before Ghislaine Maxwell was allegedly apprehended. Now, the indictment and everything, she's indicted in the Southern District of New York. The arraignment is in the Southern District of New York at 500 Pearl Street, but she's being detained in the Eastern District of New York, and I've been asking that question of everybody, and nobody really knows. I mean, it seems like they're close enough that perhaps they might share resources like that, but now that we've learned that the U.S. Attorney in the Eastern District has been replaced by somebody, I can't help but think, is Barr stacking the deck with his loyal foot soldiers to do some screwy stuff?
Stacking the deck or the swoop?
Check. Something weird.
Clear up right when we get to the park here.
I think it's back.
Okay.
That's interesting. So that's not the same problem that we usually have with the sound. That's something new. Sorry, so what were we saying?
I was saying maybe he's actually cleaning out. I mean, both the Southern District and the Eastern District are large. So there are a lot of legacy people who are pro-Clinton, pro-Obama, pro-Bush for that matter.
I don't know though, but Berman seemed like, I don't know, he seemed like he was...
Again, the issue with these districts is not just the U.S. Attorney. You have a lot of people, and these tend to argue they're career people when they're not. Career as in independently minded, not political. But I would guess that any lawyer, any lawyer in New York City is political.
Absolutely. I've never met a lawyer who wasn't political. As a matter of fact, they're extremely political.
Right.
All of them. Well, Charles, I feel very confidently that some screwy business is going down.
Well, also Trump made some comments, either in a tweet or in a press availability, that something big was going to happen in Venezuela.
Sorry, Charles, hang on.
Sure, let's keep going.
Okay.
You back?
Yeah.
Trump made a comment that something big was going to happen vis-a-vis Venezuela imminently.
Venezuela?
Yeah. And so something very big and positive for the U.S. So that could be happening now as we walk down 6th Avenue.
All right. Wow, Verizon is still boarded up over there. So I would say more businesses have their boards off now, but it's still not quite exactly... Like
Well,
H&M is totally out of business, Charles.
Yeah, they closed that store.
And
Was that it?
Victoria's Secret is boarded up. All this stuff over here is boarded up. The video game place. So Venezuela, what do you anticipate that will be?
Maybe a settlement where they, firmly install Guaido and do a deal to get Maduro out of there. I mean, it really is a shame. In the 70s, Venezuela was a very rich country, and it's been run into. We're not even in the toilet. The toilet would be an upgrade.
That guy's got the $1 billion T-shirt.
So we're walking by the place where the Clinton Foundation in 2006 supposedly had a banking relationship.
On 33rd Street.
Right here.
Yes.
But the address of their branch was not this branch, but it was down the street on the other side, the south side of the street.
Yeah.
Where that building there.
And there's 100 West 33rd. That had nothing to do with it.
Yeah. And as we all know, I mean, when you run a large organization like the Clinton Foundation and your main office at the time is up in Harlem, of course you want to have your banking relationship down here, which is very far away and difficult to get to.
Yeah.
Now, and that seems completely illogical until you think about where Hillary Clinton's New York Senate office and Senate re-election campaign office were, and those are right around here. So if you're going to use the Clinton Foundation as a way to play political campaigns, you probably want to have the cash dropped off.
You know what it is? I accidentally pulled on the wire and pulled it out. Sorry.
All right, are we live?
Well, we're still live, but it's screwing up the sound. Let's see if this brings it back. It has a tendency not to, unless I...
You got a wire loose.
No, but the good news is the software problem appears to be gone. There we go. So Hillary's office is down here. The bank.
Yeah, and the Clinton Foundation, we have documentary evidence in grant information involving Norway that the government of Norway was wiring money to an account for an entity that didn't exist at down here on 33rd Street by 2006. And we're not talking about a few shekels. We're talking about millions and millions of dollars.
You know, Charles, is it possible that Hillary would choose a bank account on 33rd Street so that it just inherently includes the type of messages
Watch yourself.
that I'm always talking about?
I don't know. I don't think Hillary, I mean, I think Hillary and Bill are pawns, actually. I think that there are forces behind them.
Of course.
And so I think there's a lot to the theory that the New World Order.
They're the public face.
Yeah, and there are many people who will happily step into Bill and Hillary's shoes, like George W. Bush, like Barack
Cory
Obama.
Booker.
Right. Now, here's a funny thing as well.
What's also Susan Rice?
Well, no, Susan Rice is, yeah, she's not funny at all, but...
No, but she would be willing to step into the shoes.
Oh, sure.
She's another Rhodes Scholar.
That's pronounced
Oxford double-cross agent.
rogue scholar, Jason.
Yeah.
You got to pronounce it correctly. So, I get a lot of email, and
You know, I spoke too soon. It is doing that sound problem. Maybe in a different way. Maybe it's... Sorry. Okay. Nice look. Everything's falling apart. This thing's running out of battery.
we have time for one more riff? Or
Absolutely. I just got to get this back in business here. That should do it.
Good. So I get a lot of email, and in recent months, a lot of email from the whole Trump family, Donald Trump, the Trump campaign. If that doesn't work, it comes from Eric or Mike Pence or whatever. But in the last 3 weeks or so, I've started to get fundraising appeals from all people, Joe Biden, the Biden campaign, Cory Booker, you name it, every dumb schmuck on the left.
Yeah.
And whereas all of the emails are sent to my correct email address by both sides,
Oh, yeah.
the Trump emails either ask Mr. Ortel or Charles Ortel for something, whereas the Democrat emails all ask at my email address Charisse for money. I mean, it's just
because the name Charles is obviously racist.
right,
You
but
have to change it. You have to relinquish your
But-
Charles privilege.
right, but I mean, how do I've never contacted any Democrat for any reason. So
Joe
how?
Biden can't quite keep details straight. Charles, Charisse, well, you know the thing.
Exactly. But I mean, it's just, and which brings me to another point. We've been doing, you and I, a series of interviews with Katya Vainova, Sputnik. And one of the reasons I decided to do it a long time ago is that so many established journalists would not deal with Russia during the Russian hoax period. And that created an opportunity for me to weigh in on a lot of topics, not just politics. But I've been doing that since May of 2016. And this Katya Vainova is very smart. She's actually, I think, trained as a historian. She speaks multiple languages. And we've done well over 125, perhaps over 150 print interviews. And one of the recent ones she's with a friend of ours, Bob Bishop, renowned accountant, retired accountant, has been bird dogging many things, but especially of late Black Lives Matter. So she's done a series of exposés way ahead of Tucker, way ahead of everybody, laying out the fraud that is the movement that appropriates that name. And then she also, with you, just did something about the polls.
Yeah.
And actually, one of the first projects I did, and one of the reasons I won the Patterson Prize in Political Science at Yale in my sophomore year, which was a sweet prize. Back then it was $1,000 cash and a $1,000 travel loan that I had to pay back in 1976. Nice. And that was a lot, 75 rather, that was a lot of money. Yeah. So I did work on polls for the renowned pollster Stan Greenberg, who was my thesis advisor at Yale. Now, he and I don't see eye to eye in politics.
Is he from Greenberg,
Yeah,
Quinlan,
yeah,
Roger?
absolutely. That's Stan Greenberg. His wife is the chairman of the American Communist
Party.
Party.
He's kind of like not a good guy, right?
Well, he wasn't back then. He was young. He was a mensch. He was a good guy, and he had no money.
Out the Yiddish, nice, Charles.
And he's now made a tremendous amount of money, and he's a highly experienced pollster. So I'm not saying I know as much as he does, but I know that when you're going to do a poll concerning the presidential election in 2020,
that's a police vehicle.
You've got to make sure. You got to make sure that you only poll likely voters. That's the first thing. You can't poll registered voters. The second thing, and the biggest call of all, is deciding what percentage of the poll should be Republican, and whether it's Republican or conservative Republican. What percentage should be liberal or progressive, and what percentage should be independent. A lot of these polls, and the next thing you got to do, if it's a presidential election, forget the national popular vote. It doesn't matter. You got to look state by state. So all this bullshit.
It's just designed to misdirect, huh?
Totally misdirect and lay out the scenario, the insurance policy that should Trump win, once again,
They'll say it was cheating.
He stole the election. So that's what they're trying to do now. And shame on Fox, frankly, for letting Chris Stirewalt and these other people hold themselves out as being political science experts and polling experts, when the polls they're serving up are just 100% rubbish.
Yeah.
And some of them, they have 26% of the voters are registered Republican. 26. That's not representative of the total.
I love it when you bring statistics and data and rational thought to things that because I told Katerina Blinova basically that I just don't trust these polls at all.
Right.
And then now you're backing it up with actually good data. I just sort of, by my gut, I think it's nonsense.
I'm the one with the gut. I got to work on that. But anyway, so these polls are rubbish, and we could talk about the vignette of Goya, where the CEO of this Hispanic food company went to the White House and praised Trump and praised people for trying to reignite the economy, and he gets cancel cultured.
Right, they want to shut down his food company.
Instead of that happening, though, interestingly, people say, you want to do a boycott? We're going to do a boycott.
Just buy a ton of Goya.
And the boycott
that's smart.
has just blown the sales off the roof.
Right.
which confirms my suspicion. I mean, like that, we had so many people, so many black people, frankly, in front of Trump Tower just now, speaking out is surprising to me. And I think the number of people who quietly are in favor of Trump and in favor of what happened, and who were suspicious, as I was in 2015-16, that maybe it was all just celebrity hype. Could this guy, who is a great builder in a family business where he can hire and fire anybody and nobody can say anything, can that sort of a person go into a swamp without authority, without necessarily a mandate, and achieve the kind of miraculous revolution that he has almost achieved?
I want to clarify for people, Charles, none of this graffiti was here. This is not a graffiti neighborhood. This is like a new kind of building, and the window is smashed. I mean, this is not done, and de Blasio is deploying resources to create more chaos rather than try to clean up the problem that exists.
Right.
He is beyond disgraceful. Ooh, now wait a minute. Is that part of the that fist, is that graffiti or is that part of the FIT art exhibit?
I don't know.
I don't know either. It looks more graffiti than,
We can go, Jason.
but they would paint that over right away if they didn't like it, so I don't know. Hard to say.
We're back to your Goodman Center. I know you're so modest, Jason.
Yeah.
Before there was a Rockefeller, there was a Goodman.
Well, I'll tell you, Charles, I mean, I agree with you. I think that I have a tremendous sense of, I don't know what the word is. I don't know those guys, so I don't know if I could be proud of them, but I think I am. As an American, I'm proud that those guys were brave enough to stand up, knowing that members of their own community, other black people, we saw it right there, calling them racist names.
Well, and the thing of it is that, you know, we live in relatively safe neighborhoods. But in the hood, no, relatively safe. In the hood, you have all these gangs, and you have gangbangers coming up and, you know, intimidating merchants, intimidating families, leading kids down the wrong path, and perpetuating a cycle of violence that Barack Obama had a historic opportunity to stand up and do something about, and instead he just wimped out.
Yeah.
I mean, under Barack Obama, you know, I'm not blaming slavery on Barack Obama, but under Barack Obama, when he started, January 20th, 2009, there was not an open slave market in Benghazi, the largest in Africa. Thanks to Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama, there still is. Frankly, thanks to Donald Trump, who hasn't yet done anything to try to clean that up, if it's possible.
He's actually supporting Erdogan, which is troubling.
That is deeply troubling. That may change now that Erdogan is messing around with the former Constantinople era.
France wants him out of NATO.
I want him out of it.
I agree with that.
Yeah. I mean, he's a straight up criminal thug. He was involved with Qatar.
He wants to rebuild the Ottoman Empire and be the Khalifa.
Yeah, well, that's not going to happen.
He's taking over Libya.
So, Jason, this has been another blockbuster.
Epic.
I pity how long it's going to take you to get it put back together.
Yeah, well, so there's like 3 or 4 different videos on YouTube because I did want people to be able to watch and enjoy the live action, and also if my head got split, I wanted that to go out.
Again?
Yeah.
Split again.
But I will, and I apologize to our Patreon viewers, but once it goes off the original link, I have to put it all back together. So if anyone who's been watching feels like this was an epic episode and they want to become a sponsor, please go to subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. And as quickly as I'm able to put it together, I'll have the whole entire show assembled into one convenient video that you can watch in one spot on Patreon and Subscribestar. Charles, anything else you'd like to say?
It's a pleasure being out here in the cool weather. I'm
God.
upset I didn't bring my overcoat.
Day yet.
Is it hot, Jason?
95. But also, Charles, this Wednesday we will be temporarily not closing in because I will be in court in Virginia. And for people who don't know what that's all about, I recommend that you go back in the library of Crowdsource the Truth to about 2017 and start watching all of those videos, and then you'll get a little bit better understanding of why I'm so focused on social engineering and these various tactics. But we'll be back next Sunday, Charles.
Yes, sir.
Hopefully the city will stay standing.
Safe travel, and remember, Jason, Virginia is for grifters.
Yeah, I think I know that. All right, everybody, thanks for watching. Have a great night. That's FDNY.